Well, welcome to the Sovereign CEO podcast. I am Caleb Jones. This is where we talk about how to create location-independent income, move to a less bad country, or at least set up an international backup plan and do all these things for very little money. And one of the core concepts I discuss here at Sovereign CEO is escaping the collapsing West. And one of the key factors of the collapsing West is the collapse of the US dollar. And this is a very big hot button topic where a lot of people with no knowledge and no research have very strong opinions, which is always a recipe for stupidity in any given discussion. If you have strong opinions, and I have many, you need to have many, not one or two, many facts that you have researched and verified to back up those opinions. Otherwise, you are being irrational. And unfortunately, this topic has a lot of irrational people on both sides of the argument. And actually, there isn't just two sides, there's multiple sides. But in this podcast, I'm going to do my best to clear away some of the BS and to give you some things that I'm seeing and some of the opinions that I have. Now, first off, number one, top of the list. The collapse of the US dollar is an extremely complicated topic. You cannot just oversimplify it by saying the US dollar will collapse, or the US dollar will collapse next year, or the US dollar will not collapse, it'll never collapse, or the US dollar will collapse, yeah, but it'll be 150 years from now. You can't do that because there are lots of factors involved in terms of whether or not it will collapse, how it will collapse, when it will collapse, under what conditions it will collapse, and what will occur before it collapses. And I'm just scratching the surface on this, and I probably gave you a little idea just now of how complicated a topic this is. This is why, and I have said this many times in my videos, blogs, etc., that even though I know the Western world, that means the United States, Canada, and Europe, will collapse in our lifetimes, I don't know when. You know why I don't know when? Because no one knows. You cannot predict anything with that level of accuracy. And if you could, you'd already be a billionaire. So if anyone on the internet or in real life ever tells you, oh yes, America or Europe or Western Europe or Canada or what have you, or the US dollar is going to collapse in a year and a half, or it's going to collapse next October, and they give you this pretty narrow date range of when they think this is going to occur, that person is either stupid, lying, or trying to sell you something. They don't know, and I don't know. I've been very careful throughout all the years I've been talking about Western collapse to not give you specific timeframes because I don't know. It'd be disingenuous for me to tell you because no one knows, no matter how much research you have. And the same goes for the collapse of the US dollar. Do I believe the US dollar will collapse in our lifetimes? Yes, I do. For the same reasons I think America will collapse, I have many economic reasons. And I'm actually working on a very big, long YouTube video where I go through every stat, every statistic, every fact on why the United States is collapsing. Big whiteboard video. That'll be coming soon. But yes, the US dollar will collapse in our lifetimes. Yes, that will occur. I don't know when. It could collapse 3 years from now. It could collapse 40 years from now. It could collapse at any time in between. I don't know how it will collapse. I have some opinions. I'll get to those in a little bit, but I don't know when. So that means several things. Number one, it means you need to prepare. You need to prepare for the fact, or maybe it's not a fact, the prediction that I think is accurate, that the US dollar will collapse in your lifetime. And the younger you are, the more important it is you prepare for this now. If you're 82, like my dad, he doesn't really need to worry about it because by the time it collapses, he'll probably be dead. So not a big deal. But if you're 25, holy fuck, you should be very well prepared for this, and your finances should be arrayed in a way for when this happens, you'll either A, be okay, or B, profit. But at least you want to be okay. You don't want this to take you by surprise. That would be dumb. And this also relates back to your current net worth. Maybe you are not old or young. I am older, I'm 50, but my net worth is such that this is something I want to preserve. And so I have to be aware of how I will array my finances now, how will I deal with this after or when the US dollar collapses. You have to be cognizant of this information, number one. Number two, you need to know how to array your funds and your business structures and things like that between now and when it collapses. Because, and this is the first thing I will tell you in terms of my predictions, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. Matter of fact, I've already been right about this. Yes, the US dollar will collapse, but before it collapses, it will go up. The US dollar will actually rise in value. Now, why is that? It is because most countries in the world incorrectly assume that the US dollar is the most stable currency in the world. So whenever there are problems in the world, like a pandemic, like a big war, like a big ecological disaster, like collapsing economics in various regions or countries, a lot of people in the world incorrectly, they are wrong, but incorrectly assume that, oh my gosh, we're having this problem. I better take my money and put it in US dollars because there it will be safe. Which means when the world has problems, the US dollar tends to spike a little bit, sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. Now, sometimes it goes down as well. That also happens. But usually it goes up. And so as economics around the world continue to worsen, I don't think the dollar is going to start to weaken. I think the dollar is going to, unfortunately, strengthen. I think it will go up before it collapses. By the way, completely side unrelated point, that is my same opinion of Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is going to skyrocket in price down the road before it completely goes to zero and is replaced by something else in the midterm or long-term future. So it's interesting that my opinion on the future of Bitcoin is the same as my opinion on the US dollar. The time frames are different, but it's basically the same pattern. It's going to rise in value, then drop to zero. As a matter of fact, I have been right about this several times. One of the numbers I check every Monday, I do it a little less often now, but I check it regularly, is the US dollar index. I check that to see how the US dollar is doing. And often when certain regions of the world are having big problems, the US dollar spikes a little bit because people incorrectly assume that their money will be safe with the US dollar. You have to remember that people are irrational, and in many cases, people are dumb and or uneducated, and they don't understand these macroeconomic factors. So you have to invest based on people actually behaving, not based on what is logical. That's a mistake that lots of smart guys, high IQ guys, college graduates, INTJ type guys like me make. They base their business structures and their investments on what is logical, not based on what flawed, insane, irrational humans in a collapsing civilization will actually do. Let me remind you that The Rise of Skywalker made over $1 billion. A completely unwatchable science fiction movie. It made over $1 billion. And I actually predicted this on my blog. You can go look a year before it came out. I said I have two predictions for The Rise of Skywalker. A, it's going to be awful. B, it's going to break over $1 billion. I was right on both counts because I assume that people are going to behave irrationally, and I have made a decent amount of money in both my business life, but mostly in my investment life because I operate under those assumptions. So just because the US dollar is in trouble, which it is, just because the US dollar will collapse in our lifetimes, which it probably will, that doesn't mean it's going to continuously drop and drop and drop and drop and drop. That's not how this is going to work. It's going to go up and then down, maybe up again, then down, then way up, and then eventually, yes, it will go to zero or be replaced by something else. Now, I've already done several videos on my YouTube channel on inflation. The United States is now in a state of inflation, as I've been predicting for the past 10 years. Of course, that's going to happen when you print trillions upon trillions upon trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars whenever the hell you feel like it to fix any problems you want. Thank you, Trump supporters. Thank you, Obama supporters. Thank you, George W. Bush supporters. This is all your fault. So the next time you're bitching about gas prices or food prices being really high, if you supported Donald Trump or Barack Obama or George W. Bush, look in the mirror. That's whose fault it is. I did not vote for any of these three people because I don't do things that destroy my own country. I am rational, unlike most human beings. I'm not 100% rational, but as compared to most human beings, I'm in the upper echelons. That's just how I am. So the next part of the discussion is, where do you put your money if the US dollar is weak? Well, the traditional answers are basically precious metals and cryptocurrency. And for the most part, that is generally accurate. I have talked about gold, for example. I own gold, I own silver, I own crypto, I own both. As a matter of fact, I did an entire YouTube video on how you don't own just gold and silver or just cryptos. You own both, because there's lots of crypto nerds who think that gold is for grandpa and is stupid. Wrong. And there are lots of guys like Peter Schiff who think gold and silver are perfect and wonderful and amazing, and all these cryptocurrency nerds are idiots going to lose all their money. Also wrong. You want to own both. You want to cover all the bases. And that's the first piece of advice I can give you, although that's nothing new if you're used to my content. I own crypto, several different kinds. I own lots of precious metals, primarily gold and silver. I own both. Why? Because I know when the US dollar has trouble, one or both of these things will probably do well, or at least do okay and preserve my wealth. One of the pieces of advice I've been giving for many years now on my blogs is that if you have a significant amount of cash in terms of US dollars or euros or whatever it is, that you take 30 to 50% of that and convert it into non-numismatic gold coins that you actually own. And the reason you do that is to protect yourself against inflation. So when, not if, when inflation gets higher, your purchasing power will be protected because your gold will either go up in value or at least maintain in value while the value of your cash drops. It would be very, very, very dangerous, in my opinion, to have nothing but cash. And I have mentioned before in my content where I know several people, and some of them are kind of big name people, who are worth over $100 million, literally hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're 99% cash. They have all these cash in all these banks. I think that's insane. However, they have so much money to them, it doesn't really matter. Okay, you have 700 million, and then there's a drop in the US dollar, and now it's only worth 500 million. Okay, I think you'll still be okay. But you and I are not in those categories, so we have to be a little more careful. So I would be very nervous if you had nothing but cash, because I know people like this, nothing but cash in banks, and that's all you've got. I wouldn't do that. Not smart, because again, the US dollar is going to collapse in your lifetime. And you want the skill set in terms of your investing life to know what to do and where to move your money if and when that happens. Because it will happen in our lifetime, but I don't know when. So that means a few things. One, you need to get good at purchasing gold. You need to know where to buy it, how to store it, the best ways to buy it, the worst ways to buy it. If you go on my Sovereign CEO YouTube channel, I have several videos on how to own gold, buy gold, and store gold. Check those out. Secondarily, not as important, but secondarily, how to buy silver, where to buy it, how to store it. If you're Five Flags, you travel around the world, how to transport it. I have several videos about that. I have also information on my blogs and other places. You can check around and look at my content, calebjones.com. You need to know these things. Number three, you need to be comfortable owning and trading cryptocurrency. I know a lot of you already are. Matter of fact, many of you are better at this than I am. Wonderful. But there's a hell of a lot of you who don't own any crypto because you think it's scary, or you don't know how, or you don't want to make a mistake, or you think it's a scam. You got to get over that shit and get your ass into some crypto. And by the way, right now is one of the best times in the world to buy crypto because crypto is depressed right now. You always want to buy low. The fourth thing you need to do, and this is optional because this is more complicated, is to understand how to invest in foreign currencies. I have several different currencies in my portfolio. This is a little more complicated, and I don't think this should be the first thing you should do. I think it is much more important for you to get comfortable with gold, silver, and crypto. And then once you're fully comfortable in that world, then perhaps look at foreign currencies, because that gets very, very complicated very, very quickly. And just like people are irrational about the US dollar, there's a lot of irrational bullshit information about foreign currencies and things like that. But that is probably the advanced level in terms of you protecting your cash if and when the US dollar collapses in your lifetime, which I think it will. The next aspect of this is to ignore the extremists. And what do I mean by that? Well, you've got some people who I like, as a matter of fact, who are chicken littles, and they're running around with like chickens with their heads cut off, and they say, oh my God, the dollar's gonna collapse next year. Oh my God, the US dollar's gonna collapse in September. Oh my God, the US dollar's gonna collapse in February. You gotta get out of US dollars right now. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Ignore them. They are wrong, and they've been wrong for 25 plus years. There have been people saying the dollar's going to collapse next year. For 25 years, the dollar's still here. So that's not going to happen, very likely. Now, again, I didn't say the dollar's fine. The dollar's in very big trouble. I just told you 4 things you should do to protect your cash. What I'm saying is, don't freak out and follow these doomsday guys who say the United States is going to collapse next year. We're going to become North Korea next year. The US dollar is going to go to zero next year or 2 years from now or by 2025. Extremely, extremely, extremely unlikely. Don't worry about these guys. Do everything else I talked about. Take the proper precautions, but don't freak out when you hear these, oh my God, doomsday extremists. Now, you will ignore extremists on the other side. And those tend to be left-wingers who think America will, quote unquote, be fine. Oh, it's okay. It will be fine. We're not going to collapse. Everything will be fine. I've talked before about how you know your country is in big trouble when the only people defending your country not collapsing are the left-wing socialists. And that's where America is now. The biggest people I get pushing back on me saying, America will be fine, it'll be fine, are 2 categories of people. Either they are immigrants who just moved to the United States and don't want to hear that the country they just moved to is going to collapse. They don't want to hear that. And extreme left-wing socialist types. These are the guys who say, oh, it's fine. We can just print more money. We'll just print more money. We'll print another $20 trillion and everything will be fine. Nothing bad will happen because we're monetarists and we owe it to ourselves. Or they'll say things like, oh, don't worry, we're just going to tax all the billionaires and we're going to tax Jeff Bezos and he'll pay for everything and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry. Everything will be fine. America's not going to collapse. US is not going to collapse. You need to also ignore these people because these people are just as wrong as the people who say it's going to collapse next year. America is indeed going to collapse, and it's going to absolutely collapse in our lifetimes. I don't know when. In our lifetimes could mean a decade or two from now, but it will collapse in our lifetimes. So you've got to ignore both sides of this because you'll get a lot of chatter on both sides. As always, you need to filter your information through the lens of objectivity, facts, and rationality. Now, does that mean that I'm exactly accurate? No, I could be a little off on some of the things I'm saying, but that's exactly why I don't tell you exactly when the US dollar is going to collapse, because I don't know. This is how I look at information. When I see people like me who say these bad things are going to occur for these reasons, but I don't know when, I tend to trust those people a lot more than the people say, America's going to collapse next February, or America will never collapse, everything will be fine, we'll just print more money. These sweeping general statements or these very narrow doomsday statements, both of which are completely inaccurate. This is a very, very big topic, and I have just scratched the surface here. If this is a topic you want me to discuss more of on future podcasts, please do let me know, because I could do 3 or 4 podcasts just on this. I don't know how boring you guys might think that is. The main thing here is to prepare. Prepare for what is going to happen in your lifetime, even if it's down the road in your life, and get comfortable with alternative non-dollar investments. Notice that I did not say buy more stocks. I don't own a single American stock in any American company other than a few corporate entities that I own. That's different. I don't own any American stocks. I don't own any American bonds. There are reasons I don't own these things, because I don't have to worry about stupid bubbles. I like to buy low and sell high. I do not like to buy high. That's dumb. And that's what most people do. So anyway, that's the main takeaway for this podcast, is at least do the things you need to do to prepare for something that will happen in your lifetime, instead of assuming it will never happen, which is dumb, or instead of freaking out and thinking it'll happen next year, which is also dumb. Cool? Cool. All right, I will see you in next week's podcast. Have fun. Bye.